and you have to make your decisions, and you have to be all right with it, because ultimately that person isn't there.
No.
They're different now. They are someone else now.
Yeah. No. And speaking of someone different, I'll sort of pull up the next one because this one's going to be. I don't know if this is the most impactful scene, but it's definitely up there because this one hit me pretty hard. To sort of show you how bad the situation is.
അതിനാണോ ഈ കടം തപ്പുന്നത്? എന്റെ സാറല്ലാതെ ഈ സമയത്ത് ആരെങ്കിലും പച്ചക്കറിയായിട്ട് ഓഫീസ് വരൂ? ദാണ്ട് അങ്ങനെ പറഞ്ഞ പോലെ എങ്ങാണ്ട് ബസ്സിന് കിട്ടിയതാ. എന്തൊരു ട്രാഫിക് ബ്ലോക്കാ. വന്ന് ടൗണിൽ കൂടെ വണ്ടി ഓടിക്കാൻ പറ്റണ്ടായി. ഇതിപ്പോ സാറിന്റെ സീറ്റിൽ തന്നെ വെക്കണം. ഇങ്ങനെ ഞാൻ കൊണ്ട് വെച്ചോളാം. ഇപ്പഴാ എന്റെ ഒരു ചമ്മല് മനസ്സിലായല്ലയോ? പാവങ്ങൾ ഉറക്കം തൂങ്ങി തുടങ്ങി. എന്തൊരു ചൂടാ. പിന്നെ എങ്ങനെ ഒരു 10-10:30 മണിയായിട്ട് സാറിനെ കാണാഞ്ഞപ്പോ ഞാൻ സാറിന് ഫോൺ ചെയ്തിരുന്നു. ആ ഫ്ലാറ്റുകാർ വിളിച്ചിരുന്നു. ബാങ്ക് ലോൺ സാങ്ഷനാക്കി എത്രയും പെട്ടെന്ന് കൊടുക്കണമെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു. ഞാൻ സാറിന് ഫോൺ ചെയ്തിരുന്നു. ആ ഫ്ലാറ്റുകാർ വിളിച്ചിരുന്നു. ബാങ്ക് ലോൺ സാങ്ഷനാക്കി എത്രയും പെട്ടെന്ന് കൊടുക്കണമെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു. സാറ് വീട്ടിലേക്ക് ഒന്ന് വിളിച്ച് പറഞ്ഞേരെ. അല്ലെ സാർ എവിടെ പോയി നേരുത് മാഡം വിഷമിക്കണ്ട. ഇങ്ങോട്ട്.
ഹലോ, അല്ല ഇത് എന്തൊരു ജോസഫേട്ടാ മലക്കറി കച്ചവടം തുടങ്ങിയ?
നിങ്ങളുടെ ഇടയിൽ പിഴക്കുണ്ടായോ? ഇതാ സാറിനെ കുറിച്ച്
അതിന്റെ ഒത്തിരി സമയം വേണോ? ആ ചീനി ചട്ടിയിലോട്ട് ഇങ്ങോട്ട് വറുത്ത് കോരി ഇങ്ങോട്ട് ഇച്ചിരി
എന്റെ പൊന്നു സാറേ, വറുത്ത് കോരി
ഇച്ചിരി പെരുംജീരകം കൂടി അരച്ചെടുത്തൊന്ന് വയറ്റിയ മട്ടൺ ചാപ്സ് മാറി.
ഇങ്ങനെ ഇത് എന്ത് പണിയായി കാണിക്കുന്ന?
വീട്ടിലിരിക്കട്ടെ, ഇച്ചിരി മോരുള്ള എടുത്തേ.
സാർ എന്നാ വേണ്ടായി പറയുന്നത്? ആൾക്കാർക്കോട്ട് അധികം പറയിപ്പിക്കാതെ. ഒരു സദ്യക്കുള്ള എല്ലാ ഐറ്റംസും ഉണ്ടല്ലോ സാർ. കാലത്തെ എനിക്കിട്ട് വെമ്പതല്ലോ. നമുക്ക് പണി തന്നിട്ട് ചിരിച്ചോ? സാർ എഴുന്നേറ്റെ. ഈ ഷർട്ട് ഒന്നിട്ടെ. ആ ബാങ്കിലോണൊന്ന് പെട്ടെന്ന് സാങ്ഷൻ ആക്കി കൊടുത്താ അതിന്റെ പിറ്റേ ആഴ്ച പുത്തൻ ഫ്ലാറ്റിലോട്ട് കയറി താമസിക്കാം. എന്തിനാ താമസിക്കുന്നത്? വാടകയ്ക്ക് കൊടുത്ത 10,000 രൂപ കിട്ടും.
ഇതെന്തോന്നാ സാറേ? പെണ്ണുങ്ങളുടെ
തക്കാളിയും കൂടെ അരിഞ്ഞിട്ടാ
എന്റെ അകവാള് വെട്ടി.
മണമൊന്നും ഇല്ലല്ലോ. കള്ളു കുടിച്ചതാണെങ്കിൽ സ്മെല്ല് വരേണ്ടതാ.
വോഡ്കായോ ജിന്നോ അതിന് വലിയ മണമൊന്നും അടിക്കില്ലെന്നേ.
എന്നാലും ഒരു മൊശട് മണം കാണാതിരിക്കില്ല. എന്റെ ബലമായ സംശയം കഞ്ചാവ് ഏതാണ്ട് തിരുമ്പി വലിച്ചതാണ്. അതാ ഈ മന്നതയും പൂച്ചയെ പോലുള്ള നിപ്പും. കണ്ടോ അത് പറഞ്ഞപ്പോഴുള്ള കള്ള ചിരി കണ്ടോ? ഇതത് തന്നെ സംശയമില്ല. സാർ ഒരു കാര്യം ചെയ്യ്, ഇങ്ങോട്ട് വന്നേ. ആ ബാത്റൂമിൽ കയറി കൈയും കാലും മുഖവും ഒക്കെ ഒന്ന് കഴുകുക. സാറിന് വയ്യായെങ്കിൽ ഞാൻ വേണേ വീട്ടിൽ കൊണ്ടാ.
Man, I think that scene to me, it's like almost just a point. So I think from an acting point of view, that was probably Mohanlal just being an absolute master because he's sort of still balancing a little bit of both. Like he's going into the full-blown, dementia and all the symptoms that come with that. And, later on after the scene, he's someone else completely. But in this scene, there's still hints of him still there. So I think this scene itself, in terms of Mohanlal's performance, to me, is probably the highlight and sort of what he's sort of doing. And man, what a scene it was! Like just to see that sort of unfold before you, and just see someone completely transform. Like it's almost unreasonable at the end how they're asking him, is he drinking, is he smoking, considering how well respected he is in community. But they're like so puzzled as to what's happening in front of their eyes that there's no other rationale for it. So I think they're just trying to justify it, but it's impossible to. But what was your sort of experience, Sunny, when you sort of watched this movie, watched this scene for the first time?
Yeah, look, I mean, amazing performance by Mohanlal. What I think about is the specific scenario that just played out there in terms of what it means to him. Him surrounded by people who respect him, where he's developed a reputation, and this like falling in people's esteem in such a rapid way. They say that it takes a lifetime to build a reputation and, a second to destroy it or something. And while you expect people to be appreciative that this is not really him, you can't help but think maybe he's fallen in their estimation. And some people will never exactly know what happened to him. And so they'll think that he's a man that's acting out or that he is drunk or something else. But I just think of how for Mohanlal's character it must be if he could appreciate what was going on, how terrible that scene is in terms of who he is in the community, the standing that he has, and how that's instantly taken away from him. And you're almost just going from 0 to 100 there in terms of consequences for him, because it just happens so quickly and he deteriorates in front of all of these people in this very kind of intense way. And your heart goes out to seeing that kind of thing happen, because you would hope that if those kind of things happen, it's behind closed doors where it can be managed within a family unit and the world can just be told, hey, he's got an illness, we'll take care of it. Come over if you want to have a chat to him or something and see. But to have it on full display there, I can just imagine like the reputational risk. And I know that's not the most important thing. It's his health and how he's going to be in the future, but how it must affect his standing in the community. It's no small thing, I think, for a man of his standing.
No, and it's something that he held so close to him, right? Like his status in society meant so much to him. So it was, the way he just transforms and he goes like on the phone call and he goes into like, home mode, like he's at home, and how seamless that is and how quick it was. He does that flawlessly, I think. He just transforms. And I know, Doug, you have a pretty... Yeah, I'm buying the shirt straight away. I don't know yourself, Doug. I think in our chat, you mentioned that this scene was pretty reminiscent of some stuff that happened with yourself. Your father, and you witnessing it. Like, was this how
it's this, because I don't want to get into too many details and I don't want to constantly harp on the fact that like I've seen it happen. But what I will say about his performance in this scene is that it was very reminiscent of what happened to me, and it read like a dissociation and like a slow devolution of a dissociation. So those were some of the episodes my dad would get into as well. Because like I said, he was always clear of speech, and the version of dementia that Mohanlal has here, as we see in the movie, like he forgets how to speak at times and he's slurring, and that really didn't happen to my dad too much. But the way that he immediately... And you can imagine this, right? Like if you're in somebody's brain like that and you're feeling comfortable, you don't take off your shirt unless you're feeling totally comfortable. Yeah, so you forget where you are and you're comfortable. And then someone reminds him where he is. And then all of a sudden your anxiety is elevated. And then that's when you see the tongue thing that he does to kind of really let you know where he is, and his look and his ultimate dissociation, like going to grab that tomato and later on, just letting his friends breathe in his face and say these things that the version of him we see at the beginning of the movie would be like, what are you talking about? That's not at all what's going on. I'm just really tired. Like that's how he would have reacted if he were in his faculties. But instead, he just allows himself to be led into a shower, immediately after the scene we just watched. And that is very reminiscent of those things. And the way that he played that, so he's walking up the stairs and he's talking and everything seems fine except he has some vegetables. And then we get into the office and he's got a phone call, and for whatever reason that triggers a part of him that makes him feel comfortable and that he's at home. Starts taking off the clothes. Somebody reminds him that's not appropriate. At that point, your heart is going to be beating. And I have to imagine some of your neurons start firing, and that exacerbates the condition leading to that full break. And that was so well crafted to show how it real time happens, right? Like, because you're just in society 1 second and the next you've done something so unbelievably different than what society expects from you that you can't help but be like almost a rag doll of yourself, trying to just not upset anyone anymore, including yourself. And that's gut-wrenching.
No, extremely powerful scene, man. It's one that I think at this point, because like before then, I'm still kind of like, okay, on the journey, what's going on? And I think the scene before that, you're like, okay, something seriously bad is going to happen. And then this is the scene where it's like, okay, it's flipped. Like now there's no coming back from here. We're just going to see, the downward sort of journey we're going to go on from here for his character. And I think the last, like, I'd say the climax, the last like 45 minutes of this movie, it is just like, you don't take your eyes off the screen. Like, I think I was in almost like a trance watching this movie compared to the first half, where you are sort of more like a bit like, okay, we're seeing how we're going, and it just sort of clicks in one moment, and you're just like, well, okay.
Yeah, I think from the moment they move out of the apartment and go back, to the other home, that's when it really hits. And especially when he points at the house and is like, this is my house.
Yeah.
You know, this is my house. And then
that's right.
You know, you see it all really roll in. And that was another issue that I kind of had with the movie up to that point, was like the progression of time. And again, I'm not familiar with this particular malady, you know, this particular expression of it, but the progression of time wasn't necessarily clear to me until all of a sudden we get that scene with the son with the beard. And I was like, oh,
yes.
You know, and then we get the hair color change. Like, oh, we are really, we have moved ahead in time progressively. You know, maybe I just didn't catch it as well because I don't understand the language. But that was really my only issue with the movie, being like, hey, if we're going to be that level of that bad, that quick, we better make it clear that in between these scenes, there has been a few days or a few weeks or a few months.
Yeah, definitely. They definitely do that really well. How about your experience watching the second half, Sonny? Just gut-wrenching punch before we see the final sort of climax.
It really is, and using the word trance is what it is, because you really don't know what version of Mohanlal you're going to get, and that is what the family are experiencing as well. And I think one of the really emotional parts of this, if you're going through it, and I don't know how accurate this is or whether it's a plot device, is those moments of lucidity that he has in between all of the kind of confusion and all of that, because it can't help but give you hope that he might come back, or that we can have more of these in the future, or that it will be okay. But the film does a terrific job in saying, all right, here's a scene where he's a bit more loving to his wife because he recognizes her. And then next scene, he's back to not understanding anything. And I just imagine what the emotional roller coaster of the people around him must be as they're going through those ups and downs. Because if you're just told that, okay, he's going to be bad forever, that's almost easier to deal with than, he's going to flick in and out of consciousness and he's going to remember a little bit, because you can't help but get your hopes up. And to the movie's credit, it's pretty unrelenting in the picture that it paints, i.e. there is no coming back from this. You might have a moment of lucidity, but the next moment he could be doing something completely out of character. And I just imagine how, as a family unit, that must be so difficult to deal with, because there's this glimmer of hope that maybe things will change or you'll have more of these moments, but you won't. And that part really, I think, challenged me and wondered how I would deal with that, and made my heart go out to all the people looking after him.
Yeah, my brother.
That's what made this movie go
my brother would get like absolutely so excited, because my dad and my brother were like best friends, right? Like my dad was my dad, but my dad and my brother were like best friends. Yeah, he's older than me. And in those moments, Brandon would be so excited and would point to that and be like, it's going to be like, it'll be all right. You know, it's not, maybe it won't be perfect, but it'll be all right. And the way I thought of it, especially because I was removed, right? Like, he was actually living with him at the time and I was 2.5 hours away. So I always thought of it like in those moments of lucidity, which were never the Notebook version of it, which is like, it's you. How has our life been for the past 20 years? I can't believe it. Let's go to my favorite restaurant. It was never like that. It would be more like more familiarity with the things that he had previously been familiar with. But like, once he stopped saying my name, that was it. Like, there were times where I could tell he was looking at me and I knew he knew I was his son. But there was one day he said Doug, and then there was never a time after that ever again, right? Like, that's what it's really like. So if you get those lucidity moments, it's more like coming across a wild animal that you're really excited to see in nature. If you get too close, you're gonna scare it. Right? So you don't want to overexert, and you don't want to create anxiety. So it's more just trying to enjoy that time for what it is, because it's going to be gone real quick. And maybe it'll last for a full day. You don't know, but you don't poke the bear, right? Like, you do not do that. You just, this is me talking to anybody who may be going through that. Just enjoy that time and be easy with it. You know, do whatever it is they want to do in that time. Because if you try to say like, hey, let's go do this thing, then that's when they're like, well, what if I forget how to do that? And then the exact same thing we saw happen with Mohanlal here might occur.
No, exactly right. Yeah, man. I think the movie does such a great job in the second half to basically I mean, pacing is one of the strongest points of this movie. I think it's paced so well in that, it sort of it builds in nicely, then the tempo increases nicely towards the end, and just the whole second half. The point you mentioned, Doug, about basically, and Sunny, about being in a state of sort of hope and confusion and being like, is something going to happen? Like you were mentioning with your brother saying that things going to be okay. But there are sort of members of this family, especially the son, when the first time when he's in the hospital, like he's sort of saying at the start, like, it's just a fever. Like, Mum, why are you crying for? But the mum is fully accepted and knows what this is going to happen, what's going to happen here. And it's just
the
hard.
way she puts her head on his leg and the way his hand just like slowly kind of gets in there. Like that's more what it's like. It's rarely more like what we get at the end of the movie, which again, for cinematic license, I totally get it, but it's usually more like, I recognize you,
Yeah, exactly.
And that scene was also very accurate.
Definitely. Yeah, no. Let's sort of close off with the final scene here. And we'll give our final thoughts about this masterpiece.
ഹലോ മഴക്കാറ് കാണാൻ നോക്കിയിരിക്കുക കറണ്ടും ഫോണും. ചേട്ടാ ചേട്ടാ എന്റെ ഈശ്വര, ചേട്ടനെങ്ങനെ മൂളിയത് എനിക്ക് വിശ്വസിക്കാൻ പറ്റുന്നില്ല. ചേട്ടനെ ഇപ്പൊ മനസ്സിലായോ? ചേട്ടാ
എല്ലാരും
ഡൽഹിക്ക് പോയിരിക്കും മോനു. നാളെ രാവിലെ അവന്റെ ഇന്റർവ്യൂ. ഈശ്വര, ഇതെങ്ങനെ അവനൊന്ന് അറിയിക്കുക? അച്ഛനും മഞ്ജു ഗുരുവായൂർ ഭജനം ഇരിക്കുക. ഒരു നിമിഷം ചേട്ടനെ തിരികെ കിട്ടേണ്ടത് പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കാം. എന്റെ ഗുരുവായൂരപ്പ. ഭാഗ്യം ഒന്ന് ചെലച്ചല്ലോ. എന്ത് കിടപ്പാ ചേട്ടായി കിടക്കുന്നത്? കൊച്ചിലെ മഞ്ജുവിനെ ആന കളിപ്പിക്കാൻ കിടക്കുന്ന പോലെ. വന്നല്ലോ. ഹലോ ഹലോ, അമ്മയാ മനു? ഹലോ ചേട്ടാ, മനുവാ. ഇതെന്തൊരു കിടപ്പാ? ഗർഭപാത്രത്തിൽ പിള്ളേർ കിടക്കുന്ന പോലെ. ചേട്ടാ, മനു ഇപ്പൊ വിളിക്കും. ഇന്റർവ്യൂവിന് പോകുന്നതിന് മുമ്പേ അവനോട് എന്തെങ്കിലും ഒന്ന് പറഞ്ഞേ. ചേട്ടാ ചേട്ടാ ചേട്ടാ
I think this was a point where I think I said to myself, I might have said it out loud when I was watching with my wife. I said, I don't know if I've seen an actor better than Mohanlal. Like I literally said that. I was just like, oh my God. Just some of the scenes he had here, man. I mean, that last scene, I don't know if I've seen somebody play somebody that's passed away. That might be the best death I've ever seen.
That is a level of commitment.
Lifeless.
To be pushed over from that position.
Yes.
On a bed.
I don't know how.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just being like, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind as to what he's gone through. He looks like he's had the blood like drained out of him,
out of his face,
or something like that. And there's moments in there where he's just like, there's like, it's so subtle in that there's like, maybe like 5% of what he used to be back in there. He's able to sort of bring that back just a little bit. It's masterful to me. And there's something about Mohanlal's performances sometimes that I can't really put my finger as to what he's doing so well. It's like almost like a level above, it's that there's something else to it. There's something special about these moments. But I mean, like, gut-wrenching scene that you just have, like, I mean, when I watched the scene at the end, I was like, was that a dream or something like that happened before? But because it just felt so surreal as to how it happened. But I thought maybe last moments before you die, you just sort of have that sort of bliss, or I don't know, what are you guys' thoughts about that? Like, what was that sort of last sort of hit, I guess?
That's interesting. I don't know if I would have read it as a dream necessarily, but maybe because she reacts the way that she does, right? So we know a version of it happened, because she wouldn't. There's no way you would walk into a room with the night before somebody who you were approaching with such caution, and now you're so warm and welcoming. And I think it's maybe more that, like, I'm a parent, right? So the version of me being a parent to my daughter when she was 1 year old, or like 1 week old, I'm like, that was easy stuff, but it wasn't for me in the moment. You forget. So maybe the night before, she's like putting this incredible, passion onto, like, we prayed and all these things, and you forget, like, you led him there. Maybe he just was smiling. Maybe he put his hand around you. Maybe it was an accident, but he put his hand around you, and that reminded you of what it was. So maybe it was more like a version of how it occurred in her own mind, where she wanted it to be that level of explosionary. Like, undeniably, he was more lucid, but I wouldn't put it past the director to be like, okay, well, there was a version of that in her mind, because we see the bell, and there are moments in that montage with them interacting that we don't see the bell. So at the very least, that's an indicator that, like, switch flipped again and he was gone, just back to bell, right? And there could be any number of reasons that he died. Most commonly with dementia, it's dehydration. People just forget to drink water, and then they get angered if you try to give them water. But it was stunning. It's haunting. It's beautiful. And immediately what follows that, with the conversation with the son, just was like an arrow through the heart. Like, what you have to do as a parent and a partner to somebody who you lost twice, so that the person who is directly related to them and is now trying to be a version of their dream. He even has that line where he was like, it used to be Dad's dream, and now it is my dream. And I'm going to do that thing. So the mother is so courageous to just make the choice to be like, go do it. He's thinking of you. And like, that is what you try to do. And that is what that last scene is all about for me, is the fact that he was able to kind of provide, maybe there's even a flash in the mind, like, I don't have much time. I need to put in the efforts. Like, I don't know. I don't know how it works. I just know that in those moments you enjoy it, and you make the hard choices when you have to make them, so that the people who are around that are able to flourish can flourish, and they don't feel like absolute human pieces of garbage for making the choices that they need to make their mark on the world. It's a difficult place to be in, but the fact that the movie doesn't shy away from you seeing all of it is to its extreme credit.
And incredible that it's in a mainstream movie, which I assume this is, that they would go down this path, right? Of being fairly somewhat realistic or, not sentimental in their approach to telling this story is absolutely to their credit. I mean, I'll just add two things. Like Mohanlal's performance in this, as we've all discussed, is absolutely amazing. And you told me about the things that he kind of does at a higher level, or there's some X factor he's got. For me, from start to end in this film, it's this inherent likability and relatability that Mohanlal has. As soon as he's on the screen, you like him. He needs to say no words to have you completely in his corner as a great father, as a pillar of the community, as a pillar of his family, incredibly intelligent guy. Yeah. There is just this immediate believability, which must make the director and writer's job very easy when you cast him as your main actor, because he's just portraying that effortlessly. And just that relatability just, I think, draws the audience that much closer to his character generally. And just, I think what struck me about the scene we just watched is just at a, I think, more general level, the things he's doing with his wife there are such everyday things. They're not going on a holiday or doing some great outing to a fancy restaurant. They are praying together. They are hugging. They're doing things that you do in an ordinary life that should last for, 40 years of a marriage or whatever it is. And it just reminded me, you don't take these things for granted, maybe. These small moments, you're lucky to have them, and you need to make kind of the most of that. And there's very few films that make me think I need to be better at something. And for me, it was like, I need to be a better son, or I need to appreciate moments more. And if anyone walks away with that feeling, having watched that film, what a incredible achievement for a film. Because, today what I'm going to do after our chat is give a call to my parents and say hi and have a bit of a chat with them, which I might delay till, next week if I got busy. But it's a remarkable thing, this film, the empathy machine that Doug was talking about. I think this does so much in wanting you to understand these situations and what to do in these situations, and also how to, I think, just be a person that you can be proud of later in life as well. Yeah.
No, it's an incredible movie, man. Can't sort of sing its praises really anymore for what's sort of achieving here. It is basically, it's a huge commercial success, but I think it is defined as a little bit more of an art house piece, just because it delves into some topics that aren't so mainstream, I guess. But to their credit, we're doing something like that, because again, it's not every day you see a movie talking about Alzheimer's and things like that. But I do want to give a special mention to some of these other actors as well. Like, I know, like, we've sort of spent time on the son and spent time on Mohanlal, but the actress as well, especially towards the second half, Meera Vasudevan. Man, that last scene especially, and I've seen this happen a little bit every now and then. I don't know if it reminds you a little bit of Sunny, when we was put the Kannadi, like at the end, there's a scene at the end with the actress as well, who's just in shock. You see that again here, where she's just like, we just saw glimpses of that, and they're just like, she's like, what's happening? And she can't believe it. But then she has to do, as you said, Doug, be courageous and do that.
Right,
and the movie shows, it does such a great thing of showing you like how much pressure this puts on the family as well, and does that throughout. And we see that none better than the scene right here. Like, son, I'm sorry, you're, the person you admire and you've grown up as your idol your whole life. I can't tell you what happened because I have to protect you from this information. Oh, it's just such a hard thing to swallow. And the father as well, Nedumudi Venu, who's absolutely fantastic.
Terrific.
Second half, we didn't see him in any of the scenes, but my God, there's that scene when I think he jumps into, Mohanlal jumps in. No, they were scared that Mohanlal's gone for gone to the lake. Rameshwaran, he jumped into the lake for a bath because he's forgotten where he is. And the father says something like, "Don't worry, he knows how to swim." And then the interaction between the wife and him is just like, my God, it's such a small scene, but they're just looking at each other like, wait, that's not true anymore.
He knew,
he knew how to swim.
Yeah. He knew how to swim, and he's just like, what do I say here? What do I do? There's nothing. I don't know how to respond to this. So again, some fantastic performance all around, man. Like, we're definitely not going to do an IMDb scale for this one. Like, I think this movie deserves to just be on its own. Like, I think it's
amazing.
Yeah, I don't want to sort of give this any go for it.
I would also mention the friend, Joseph, the one who just lays down everything to be able to, help set the family up and does all the stuff. And then his death is utilized so effectively again for that scene where later on where, everybody's like, hey, we've met. Don't you remember me? And, like the father is testing the waters in a way that a lot of people, I think, who have a family member where they're like, okay, I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be fine here.
Yeah.
And he's not. and everybody around him is made just that little bit more uncomfortable already in the face of death because why aren't you mourning your friend? Why aren't you doing this? And I know you. Why aren't you talking to me? Like the way that he has to kind of pull his son in close to him and the fact that he has to treat. And there was a line at the beginning of the movie where your children never grow up, not when you're their parent. They never become grown-ups. And then you have to watch in the second half as somebody he was so certain was a grown-up becomes an infant again. And that was like, whoa, like you could draw all kinds of symbolisms everywhere, but like I couldn't not mention him because my dad had a best friend that showed up in that same way where it's just like anything you need, whatever. And like the one person who immediately understands and takes it to heart, like nothing is offensive, nothing is off limits, and because I'm not directly family, I can handle some of the more difficult stuff maybe even better than you can. I'm not going to let it personally affect me. So when he's gone, that slide hits even more. But another fantastic, just like rock solid across the board. Like, I'll be there for you now. Maybe you smoked a little bit of weed at work. Like, nope, that wasn't it. You actually are afflicted, and I will take care of you. Like, fantastic.
Fantastic, guys. Well, thanks everyone for tuning into this extra special, like I'm going to call it a tribute episode to this movie, because we have definitely we've sung our praises for this, and we really enjoyed it. And thanks to everyone who suggested this movie, let us know about this movie. We are better off having watched this movie. So
absolutely, yeah. 100%.
And obviously, thanks to you guys. This was absolutely awesome.
Been a pleasure.
And looking forward to sort of seeing what the next round of movies do for us. So we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Appreciate it, guys.
See you guys.